How are you, boys and girls? Today our lesson is probability. We have two types of probability: experimental probability and theoretical probability. In this lesson we will talk about experimental probability. The experimental probability depends on performing an experiment. Then we record the result. Finally, calculate the value of probability of an event occurrence using the following rule. Experimental probability equals number of trials in which the outcome occurs over total number of trials. From the result of the experimental probability, we can predict what may happen in the future referring to previous experience. Let's take an example to understand it more. We need to know the experimental probability of tossing one coin 10 times. Let's start by tossing a coin and recording our results each time. Tossing a coin means throwing a coin up in the air and seeing which side is shown after it lands. We will record our results 10 times. Trial number 1 is head. Trial number 2 is tail. Trial number 3 is head. Trial number 4 is tail. Trial number 5 is head. Trial number 6 is head. Trial number 7 is tail. Trial number 8 is head. Trial number 9 is head. And finally trial number 10 is tail. Now the number of trials in which the outcome was head equals 6. And the number of trials in which the outcome was tail equals 4. Now let's go back to our rule to get the experimental probability of tossing one coin 10 times. The experimental probability of getting a head equals 6 over 10 equals 0.6. The experimental probability of getting a tail equals 4 over 10 equals 0.4. The question here: what we can do with this results? This results help us to predict the results for higher numbers of trials. So we can predict the number of occurrence of heads and tails when tossing the same coin for 1000 times. Let's calculate it. The prediction about the number of occurrence of heads is 0.6 times 1000 equals 600 times, while the prediction about the number of occurrence of tails is 0.4 times 1000 equals 400 times. Let's take another example. We asked 60 students about how they come to school. The result of the survey was as following. 10 students stated that they come to school on foot. 15 students stated that they come to school by bus. 20 students stated that they come to school by taxi. 5 students stated that they come to school by bike. 10 students stated that they come to school by car. Let's calculate the experimental probability for each case. The experimental probability of choosing a student comes to school on foot is 10 over 60. The experimental probability of choosing a student comes to school by bus is 15 over 60. The experimental probability of choosing a student comes to school by taxi is 20 over 60. The experimental probability of choosing a student comes to school by bike is 5 over 60. The experimental probability of choosing a student comes to school by car is 10 over 60. Let's make simplification. 10 over 60 equal 1 over 6. 15 over 60 equal 1 over 4. 20 over 60 equal 1 over 3. 5 over 60 equal 1 over 12. 10 over 60 equal 1 over 6. Now we calculated the experimental probability for each case. If the number of students in the school is 600 students, can you predict the number of students coming to the school on foot? Sure. Let's calculate it. The prediction about the number of students coming to the school on foot is 600 times 1 over 6 equals 100 students. Can you predict the number of students coming to the school by bus? The prediction about the number of students coming to the school by bus is 600 times 1 over 4 equals 150 students. Can you predict the number of students coming to the school by taxi? The prediction about the number of students coming to the school by taxi is 600 times 1 over 3 equals 200 students. Can you predict the number of students coming to the school by bike? The prediction about the number of students coming to the school by bike is 600 times 1 over 12 equals 50 students. And finally, can you predict the number of students coming to the school by car? The prediction about the number of students coming to the school by car is 600 times 1 over 6 equals 100 students. Finally, we understand how to calculate the experimental probability and how to predict the results for higher numbers. Hope you enjoyed our session together. See you soon in the next session.